I'm Travis Weaver, and you're listening to the Good People Project.
All right, let's get rolling. Negative stories get headlines, but there are a ton of good and decent people stepping up to serve an elected office. The Good People Project tells the unsung story of those who wake up every day to do good and selfless work for the American people. With new episodes out every Monday, please share this episode with friends and family to help spread our positive message. Today's guest was appointed as a state rep in 2023 and is now on the ballot for the first time. It shocks me how young he is because his list of accomplishments are those of a much older man. He spent 21 years in the United States Marine Corps, retiring as a Master Sargent. He now resides in Danville with his family, where he most recently served his community as a municipal employee. He's a husband, a father of 3, and is really one of those people who, from the first time you meet him, can tell that he's an honorable man with high integrity. I'm proud to consider him a friend. So, without any further ado, the wise and talented Brandun Schwiezer. Brandun, how's life?
Life is really good.
And we got a special guest with us here today. Who's this?
Hi, my name is Deacon.
Deacon, how old are you?
I'm 7.
7, and any sports you like to play?
I play soccer.
Awesome. And was there something else you wanted to say?
Make sure to like and subscribe.
Awesome. Good job, buddy.
Good job, dude. All right, thank you.
You did perfect, buddy. Okay, so Brandun, let's start with the U.S. Marine Corps. I mean, what a cool piece of your background. You were an intel analyst. So my first question is, what classified information can you tell us?
Well, I've only been retired now for just almost going on 2 years. So I still got another 23 years before I'm able to say anything.
Okay, so we'll redo this 2047,
Yes.
And then you'll divulge where the aliens are and what really happened with JFK.
Yep.
We'll get into all those. So you were deployed, and where'd you go?
So I did 3 deployments in Iraq and 2 deployments in Afghanistan. I also did a deployment to Okinawa, Japan, and I was part of a special purpose MAGTF deployed to Spain.
And tell us about those.
Yeah, so my first deployment was early 2003, before we pushed into Iraq. It was actually probably one of the funnest times that I've had being deployed, because we were there in January of 2003, didn't push in until March.
Did you say one of the funnest times you had being deployed?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Hoo-ah.
Yeah, because there was really not much for us to do besides just waiting until things actually kicked off, and we pushed in. So I was on an Air Force base, Al Yassalim in Kuwait, and they had being an Air Force base, they had a lot of the best amenities you can possibly have. And so they had a pool there. So we did a lot of swimming, did a lot of volleyball in the pool, out of the pool. So it was just a really fun time until we had the push off into Iraq actually began. Yeah.
And so were you there when that also began, when things got heavy?
So I was there when we pushed into Iraq. So I wasn't part of the group that actually pushed into Iraq itself. I did take multiple trips up into Iraq to the front lines to take out classified maps to the folks that were up there, to give them a better idea of the upcoming cities that they were getting ready to go to. But I was not part of the wave that pushed in, but I did do some back and forth, just taking materials up to those folks.
Yeah. So as an intel analyst, are you doing recon? Are you just managing intelligence for strategy purposes? What exactly does that involve?
Yeah. So there's a bunch of different facets of the intelligence field that you can get into. There is the folks that do the reconnaissance stuff, but I was part of your basic intelligence analyst. So the infantry guys that go out, the pilots that go out and fly, when they get back from their missions, we do debriefs. We take down the information that they saw. We gather, different tactics and techniques that they're talking about the enemy's using. We put all that, into reports, and then we, brief it up to, our commanding officers. So when they have to go and make, operational planning, they have, basically the best picture that we can provide for them.
So every piece of information is a puzzle piece, and it's your job to say, these are the puzzle pieces we're getting. How do we fit these things together? And are there times, I'm sure there are, when you're getting a piece of information and it's not jiving with another piece, and so you got to figure out which one's inaccurate, or if they're both accurate, what's the missing piece that ties them together?
Yeah, there can be. There was a lot of when you're getting into, a lot of the techniques that are being used, especially when it's coming to, IEDs, whether they're using, pressure plate IEDs, whether they're using, RC, or, radio command, or, just depending on the different types of IEDs that they're actually using, that can be honed in onto a specific, terrorist cell, which would normally have, a specific individual that specializes in that type. So it's really once you go out and, you get the debriefs back from the folks that are out there, they talk about the different tactics, they gather the different, pieces of intel that are out there, whether it's, the leftover pieces of the bomb. If it didn't go off, you have the whole gamut there. You have the controller basically of whether it's the pressure plate or, the different, basically which is going to make the IED explode. That tells a big story of who actually created that bomb. And then when, you have a lot of...
So when you say who, is it like who the state sponsor is, who the different terror group is? Like
the different terror cell, yeah. So normally, I mean, there's going to be a specific person that is running the terrorist cell, and that, that person has a lot of the intelligent, the mindset of how to control the group and how to do, whatever they're doing, whether it's, bomb making, whether the ones going out and placing it, that person's going to have their telltale sign of, this is kind of my calling and what I specialize in.
Yeah, so no matter what they're doing, they're kind of putting their fingerprints on things. So like if you're a mechanic, you might know it's a Ford or a Chevy because you see the emblem on it, but you can also just get under the hood and just see how it's made. And everybody has different people making things. They probably have a little bit different style. So, but as you're doing this, I'm sure they're also evolving over time. So is a big part of being an intel analyst monitoring those movements and seeing what changes that they're making and how they're developing things and how they're getting smarter and more tactical?
Yeah, it's basically just putting, trying to gather as much, the information, the picture on the battlefield that you can possibly get. So when we are making our, our operational planning, we can give that, to the commanders who are going to be giving the briefs, to the platoon commander or, the platoon sergeant who's ever going to be briefing their squad that's going out. Hey, this is what you need to be looking for, whether it's, tactics that they're using, a specific time of day. We're getting a lot of statistical data that we can obtain as well. If it's a clear night, you could potentially have more IEDs that are, getting laid out. If it's, not a, time of day, if it's hot outside, cool outside, they're people as well. So they're going to have the same elements that we have. So it's really just gathering all these different, pieces of information just to be able to give as best picture as we can to the folks that are, actually going out there and putting boots on the ground and putting their lives on the line.
So from starting in 2003 over there, and I know you weren't over there until you retired, but are you able to talk about how you saw them evolve and just ways that the enemy got smarter? Because I'm sure, just like anything, you start a war. And I just was listening to a podcast where they were talking about, just the Russia-Ukraine situation and how that has evolved. Because when you start, you got a lot of people that are out there that are rookies. And I'm sure there's, an exponential curve where you're making mistakes, you're figuring things out. I'm sure the enemy is the same way, where they're just getting a lot smarter at how to be, against the Americans as they learn more about us as well.
I mean, yeah, when you think about, how long we were over there, they're going to continually progress on their ways that, how they fight us, as well as, we're continually gathering information to be able to, get a better foothold of what they're doing. They, a lot of, at the beginning of the time when they're, making their IEDs or when they're fighting, it was a bunch of directional weaponry. They're using, leftover munitions from, tank rounds or, mortar rounds, and that's what they were using for their IEDs, expanded into, HME, homemade explosives, kind of the stuff that, the Oklahoma City bomber used. A bunch of this, homemade factory things that you can just piece together that will make something, explode. And that's what they're actually using, so it's progressing from, this is what we have available, these munitions, so we're going to use these. When these are getting low or they're running out, now we got to find another way. So they're going to go into be able to making their own. And then all that has its own telltale signs. When you have these HME factories, there's a stench that goes along with it. So when you have a patrol going out and they're talking about they're smelling this, strong odor of, some strong odor of a different smell, you're taking that information and then you're seeing, okay, around this area, there's been a lot of, IEDs that have been made with HME. So let's go back to this place where these patrols have continually said that, we smell this aroma of something, and then you go in there and, you can find it. There's an HME factory. That's where they're making this homemade explosive. So they are evolving their tactics, and that's when, we got to continually evolve, our tactics as well. And just, so we're doing everything we can to ensure that our Marines out there are coming back alive.
What's the training like for them so that they're giving you information that helps you? Because what I'm thinking, like with a smell, to somebody who just boots in the ground, they might think, oh, that smells weird. And then that's the only thought they have about it. Whereas if they come back to you and say, hey, I smelled something weird, that's valuable information. So how do you get them to give you the information that is helpful to you, but to them might just seem like a day in the life that's not really worth reporting back?
Yeah, it's definitely we got to let them know, hey, this is the stuff that you need to be looking for when you're out on patrol. And I mean, they're looking for it just as much as we are, because they're the ones, the infantry guys, they're the ones that are boots on the ground that are going to want to be telling you, hey, this is what we're seeing. So, when we're constantly evolving what we're asking for, they're constantly evolving what they're looking for. And, when it comes to, what they're seeing, we got to be able to extract, like, hey, did you see, this? What did you smell? What were the people like? Were they interacting with you? Have you been out in this area before? How are the people like? Did they interact with you then? Because, you can go out and, to a village, the people could be very receptive to you. They can, talk to you, want to come up to you, and they're like that, consistently. And all of a sudden you go out there again. Now they're not coming to you. Now they're not looking at you. Okay, what is different now in this area? So you got to be able to get the interpreters to be able to ask the right questions, and just to be able to gather the information. Okay, is there anybody new in this village that you've noticed? What's going on in this village? Why were they so receptive to us, for the last couple of weeks, and all of a sudden nobody's even looking at us or not talking to us or not coming out of their house, trying to get all that information and, paint a picture to be able to understand, okay, there's probably some, bad folks that just moved into this village, and some things are about to be kicking off. So that's, you just got to be able to keep aware of that type of situation. And it could just be, the littlest of things, like you see kids out playing one day, and, that's a continual thing. And all of a sudden you're going out there and now the kids aren't playing. Well, you might not think of, okay, it could just be hot. The kids, could be sick. Something going to happen to their soccer ball that they don't have anymore. And so really being able to pick up on that, and then you go back and we're talking, being able to understand, okay, maybe something else is happening over there.
Yeah. What percentage of, I'm sure you get a lot of information that's just fluff, right? Like maybe they say, hey, Brandon, last week kids were playing, this week they're not. And maybe to your point, well, it's hot this week, or maybe their soccer ball just got popped, or maybe that means because somebody came out and said, you guys better not be socializing anymore. And so, I mean, is there a percentage you can put on how much stuff you're told that actually matters and how much of the just sort of fluff you got to kind of parse out?
I mean, not for our job. And when it comes to lives being online, every single thing that they tell you matters, and you just got to figure out why it's different. And it could be, a lot of nothing, or it could be, there's a group of folks moved in that are now trying to recruit, or now threatening the village people. So nothing that you are told can you take with a grain of salt and say that's probably nothing, because every little piece of information, regardless of what it is, could be the one thing that's going to, crack whatever's happening there open.
I got to imagine that the guys on the ground probably love you and want to tell you stuff because you're the guy that keeps them safe.
Yeah, they're definitely very receptive, because you were basically embedded with them when you're at the same unit. You might not have the same job, but you're constantly around each other. Each other because they're going out there, they're coming back and talking to you. So you're making that connection, that one-on-one. So the friendships. It's not always deployed life, so you're always back in the States, and you're just hanging out with friends, and so a lot of those you build those relationships, and so they know that, okay, I need to talk to this person when something happens, even if, we went out there, we got an engagement, and, one of our, individuals, passed away or got injured. You got to be able to talk to the individual that's asking questions about what you see, what happened out there, so you can get the information. So try to avoid stuff like that happening again.
Something that's interesting about you is you're a retired Master Sargent, which is what Tim Waltz also is, despite the fact that he always says that he's a retired Command Sergeant Major. And so, for somebody like me, I'm not a veteran. Love that you are. Respect you so much for it. But why lie about that one grade change? I mean, I think you're already so respected. I think Master Sargent is an E7 or an E8.
E8.
And he says he's an E9. I mean, people already respect you. They already appreciate your years of service. They love that you're a veteran. Well, I mean, is it a huge jump that would incentivize somebody to, be generous to him, misspeak? I mean, what? I mean, do you have any thoughts on why somebody might pad that like that?
Yeah, I mean, I've been asked this multiple times, especially being a military person. When he had said that, he retired as a Command Sergeant Major, he made the rank. He did not retire at that rank. So he continually said that he's a retired Command Sergeant. That's not the case. That's not true, because you obtain a rank and then you have obligations to fulfill. So he didn't fulfill those obligations that were required. So you didn't retire at that. He could have said, I made it to the rank of, Command Sergeant Major, and then I retired. That's completely different than saying I retired as a Command Sergeant Major, which he continually said, and he continually boasted about on all his resumes and his talking points. And had he just, said it off the cuff one time, maybe, you can get away with that. But continually to, paint that picture that I retired as, one rank when you didn't actually fulfill the obligation, and then getting into the reasons why you didn't fulfill that obligation is, to me, what concerns me more than him saying that I retired as a Command Sergeant Major. Mm-hmm. Once you're up that high, the requirements for putting in for a retirement. It's not the way that he went about doing it. You have your obligations as, to your command, to your, for him, your soldiers that are underneath you, that they look up to you. They expect that you're, doing everything right. And then you're trying to backdoor the system to be able to get out of it. That's what to me is unacceptable. And so him saying that, I made it to this rank and I retired, whatever, but him backing out of those obligations for the reason he did, to me, is what, personally to me, takes away a lot from him.
Yeah, it really is just puzzling to me, because if he ran on, I'm a retired Master Sergeant, awesome, man. Thank you so much for your service. Mm-hmm. Wow, 24 years. So great you did that for our country. But it just seems like it's such a thread with him that he just can't help but fabricate the story. And there's 100 things like this. Like, he says he led the high school football team to state. Well, he was a freshman assistant coach. I don't know that a lot of freshman assistant coaches would say that they were the one that led the team to say. Why not just say that you volunteered as a high school football coach because you love the game and you love investing time in young men?
Yeah.
Super honorable. Yep. Why go that extra step and lie? He also had an interesting one recently where him and Kamala did this thing where they interviewed each other, and he was like, I eat tacos, but I eat white guy tacos, and it's just meat and cheese because I've got white guy taste, and when white guys don't have good taste, and so the hottest thing I can handle is black pepper. And then it comes out that in 2016, he won a cook-off award, and the dish that he made was like enchiladas with chili and chili powder and garlic and onion powder and paprika and like all these robust flavors. And why lie about being a white guy who has bad taste? Did he just like being self-deprecating about white people? I mean, I don't know. This one I think is pretty shameful, because it's not like he misspoke one time. I was listening to a podcast recently, and it's like 20 times of him saying the wrong rank that he retired at. And that he knows, because all the people that served with him were writing letters to his congressional office correcting him, saying, honest mistakes happen, you got to correct this. And so, if I said something that was me just misspeaking, and I said it once or twice, and somebody said, hey, you might not be doing this intentionally, but you're saying this wrong. I would never say that wrong again because now it's stuck in your mind.
Yeah, when I always look back at myself, I retired, as a Master Sargent. I spent 21 years in the Marine Corps. There's nothing else that I have to prove to anybody that I, am more or less deserving of anything. Like I didn't do it for any accolades. I did it because, I joined the Marine Corps because I was going nowhere in my life and I needed some structure and discipline. And I continued to serving because I absolutely loved, what I was doing. I continued to serve once I picked up so much rank because I loved being a leader of Marines. And I retired because my heart was more dedicated to my family and my wife and my kids, that I was continually to miss birthdays, to miss anniversaries, that it was no longer in my heart that I wanted to continue serving. And if I did, I was doing it just to have a job and just to try to get promoted. That is not, that's not in the best interest of my Marines. It's not in the best interest of the Marine Corps. It wouldn't do anything for my family because I would have kept missing anything or everything. And so I made that choice to get out of the Marine Corps when I did. There's him being in 24 years, retiring as a Master Sergeant, making it to the rank, that he made it to, which was the E9, but because he didn't fulfill his job, he had nothing else to prove to anybody.
Right.
You could have just left it at that and said, I retired, out of the Army after 24 years. Whatever your rank was when you retired, who cares? Like, you spent 24 years in the armed services. Like, thank you for what you did. But now you're diminishing that by continuing to say that I retired at a specific rank when you didn't do that, saying that you carried, weapons of war in wartime, when that is not. Like, every little thing that you embellish or you lie about your service or about what you've done in your life is diminishing what you have done in your life. And now it's, to the point to where there's a significant amount of people that don't respect him because he continues to embellish on his life when there's no need to. Like, why would you go about doing that? What is he trying to make up for? And I that's what I just don't understand. What he did great things in his life. Just leave it at that.
Right.
But there's something that he's trying to achieve by embellishing more on his career and his life than he needs to. And I just lost a lot of, I just don't understand.
Yeah. And I think it's such an interesting contrast with you who, Walt says, I carry weapons of war and war. I was part of Enduring Freedom when he was in Italy. And then here I sit down with you and you're like, I was in Afghanistan, but you didn't want to pat it. You were like, yeah, I was there at a fun time. We it wasn't crazy yet. There was pools. I mean, just being honest, nobody respects you any less. You're serving your country, but I got a hunch if I was sitting next to him and not you, it would have been, I was in Afghanistan and it was, I could tell you some war stories. It's like, just be honest, man.
Yeah.
It's not that big of a deal. But I've said this before, I think you're the real deal. And really before I even got to know you that well, there was a story that I'm going to share that I think highlighted me immediately that you were the real deal because one of your first weeks in Springfield, we had an active shooter alert. And so we're sitting in our caucus room. It's only the House Republicans, us 40. It's kind of our, for the listeners, our time to be alone and discuss what we're going to do on bills and discuss our strategy. All of a sudden over the loudspeaker, active shooter warnings are coming on. Immediately, Brandun Schweizer and the two cops, Cabello and Tipsword, are up, 2 at the doors, 1 at the window. And it ended up being a false alarm, but it didn't matter that it was a false alarm. As soon as the threat came, you guys were there ready to do your job and to protect the rest of us. And that to me just was eye-opening. It was cool to see in action. It was cool to see the cops in action and just to feel like, man, it's great that we got people here that are not just, don't just wear the badge or don't just pad the resume, but when push comes to shove, are ready to stand up and do hard things to protect people.
Yeah, appreciate it. So when that happened, I, just got up, stood by the door. To me, I wasn't really doing anything special. But, when I think of incidents like that taking place, there's really 2 options that you can do. You can, try to hide or you can try to fight. Well, we're stuck in a room. There's no hiding in there. There's nothing we could have done. So I would rather myself be up at the door ready if someone were to come in and try to do something to at least be able to. I don't know what I would have done.
Yeah, well, you got a hell of a lot more training than I do.
I would have done something. I would whatever I had to have done if that were to be the case. But luckily, nothing actually evolved out of that. There was great, Capitol Police were there quickly, and they were roaming the halls, and I was kept peering out, the door crack, and you'd see them going up and down, in their gear and everything. So kind of knew that we were going to be safe in there, but really just standing there, just in case, because you never really know.
So what was your upbringing like? Did you get military family or anything? You just find a recruiter that sold you and you said, I want to do it?
So, I mean, that's a great story, actually. So no, I had no, history of military service. I went to a very small school, graduated with 78 kids in my class. I think it was the Army was the only service branch that ever came out to my school. And when I was in, I think it was 11th grade, had the Army recruiter come over to talk to me and my mom about enlisting. I didn't let her know, and as soon as she got there, she kicked him out. So that dream was dead. Graduated high school, didn't really have a pathway of what I wanted to do. Got a job at Cable and True Values back in their maintenance department. So when they would rent out, like rototillers and stuff like that, we would get them back in. I would clean them up, change the oil, make sure everything's good on them, and then put them back on the floor to be rented again. And I was just tired of doing that. And I mean, not really, I didn't see a future for myself. And I would pass the recruiting station all the time going into work. And so I just said, you know what, one day it was a Saturday morning and I would just like make a turn in there. I was like, let's give this Army thing a try again. And so went in there and knocked on the Army door and there was nothing. Knocked again. And all of a sudden I heard a door open behind me and I turned around and there's two Marines standing there in a dress blue, a Master Sargent and a Sergeant Major. And they go, can we help you? And I was like, I'm just here to, get information about joining the Army. And they looked at me and they go, well, the Army doesn't work on Saturdays, but why don't you come on in here? So at that point, I probably should have known I was in the right area to join the Army. But no, so I went in there, talked with them, and I mean, just ate up every single thing that they were saying and was like, where do I sign? I want to do this. And when I didn't tell anybody that I was really doing it until I was on my way to MEPS, called up my parents. I was like, hey, I'm going up to join the Marine Corps. My mom wanted to talk, and so we made a detour. At the time, my mom was living in northern Illinois, in DeKalb area, and so I was going up to Chicago. We went over to DeKalb, talked to my mom and my stepdad, who I call my father, and let them know what I was doing. And I had the aspirations. I want to join to be in the infantry. Every person, especially when I was a recruiter, what do you want to do? I want to be in the infantry. So that's all I wanted to do. And when I didn't tell my mom that, obviously. So when the recruiter and my mom and my father were talking, my mom goes, well, what does he want to do? What job is he going to get into? And the recruiter looked at me. He goes, oh, well, we've been talking. He really wants to be in the infantry. So that's what we got a job locked up for him. And she started crying, got up and walked out of the room. My father-in-law, 6'4", 250. He was a starting linebacker at Texas A&M. Walked over to the recruiter and got in his face and goes, I don't give a dang what you do, but you will have his job changed.
Except he didn't say dang.
He didn't say dang, and he put a word in front of job. And so my recruiter looked at me. He goes, I never told him what I was going to do. So ended up getting my, I initially joined on an open contract, but before leaving for basic training, a position came open for the intelligence field. And so that's how I got my life started in the intel field.
Wow, man. And when you pulled in that parking lot, probably had no idea that you were going to change your life.
I did not. I didn't know what I was really thinking of. I didn't even know what a Marine was at the time because small school, they didn't come out there. And so, all I knew of Rambo, and that's what I wanted to be. And so I just went in there and wanted to join the Army, and I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And then lo and behold, they saw me there and talked to me about it and sold me on it pretty quickly.
And did you guys talk about politics when you were growing up, or was that something that you got more engaged with as you got older in your career?
So I have really never in my life ever thought about getting into politics. My whole family growing up, they're all big unions, so they're all Democrats. My grandfather was a cement mason for 50 years. My biological father was a cement mason for 40 years. My same grandfather, who was a cement mason for 50 years, was the secretary of building trades out of Indiana. My brother and my brother-in-law both in the unions. My cousin's an electrician. My other cousin's a tin knocker, and I have another cousin who's in the teachers union, and so large union family. And so when I got out of the Marine Corps, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and so my initial thought was I'll just walk in and become a police officer. So I talked with the chief of police here. He was telling me that we have, some openings that are available that I can get into a school seat, but couldn't get the wife to sit down and even talk to me about it. And then, so I was like, okay, what else can I do? I can become a firefighter. Well, I was past the age of being able to become a firefighter. And so I was working for the city at the time that I heard Mike was going to step down, and somebody asked me about it, and I was like, I'd never even thought about being in politics ever in my life, but I still had that strong desire to want to serve in some capacity. And I was like, this would be a great way to be able to serve the community again, get yelled at again, which being in the Marine Corps, I'm used to that. And so I threw my name in the ring, and lo and behold, here I am. So,
yeah, I think it's so great when you meet somebody that never planned on being in politics, maybe didn't even really want to be in politics. When I do candidate recruitment, if you sit down with somebody and I'm like, hey, what do you think about running for the seat? And they're like, yes, I've always wanted to do that. And then maybe down the road, I could climb and I could do this job and I could do this job and I could get elected to this seat. My gut just starts to turn, because it's like, the goal isn't for you to climb. The goal is for you to get into it and do a good job and serve the people that you're currently elected to serve. But alternatively, if I'm sitting down with somebody and I say, hey, I think you ought to run for the seat, and they're like, gosh, I don't know, I don't think I should, then I'm like, well, let's talk further, because it should be something that you have hesitancy about, because I think that then proves that you're not doing it for yourself. You got to convince yourself to do it because you know that it's the right thing to do and you're going to serve others. But I do just kind of think that some people that are so jumpy into it kind of illuminates the fact that they're doing it for themselves. And there are some people that say yes the first time and they're selfless, but I just appreciate that you were a little hesitant. It wasn't your plan, but when the door opened, you said, I'm ready to serve in this capacity.
Yeah, I mean, I've loved every minute of it. Going to Springfield, trying to learn, how to navigate, that life down there. Go around here, just talking to, a variety of different people with different backgrounds. In essence, that's kind of what the Marine Corps was. It was, you're getting people from all over the world, different backgrounds, growing up differently, and now all of a sudden you're on a team, and you gotta be able to have each other's back and understand, okay, this is how I grew up, and this is how I grew up. Well, neither one of these are the same, but we have one goal, and that's to be on the same team, to keep each other alive, and trying to navigate the political scene here in Illinois. You're on this side of the fence or the aisle, you're on this side of the aisle. Well, we both have the same goal, that we want to improve the lives of every Illinoisan here in the state. We just view going about it differently. So really trying to come together and try to figure out, okay, what do we have that's similar, and how can we go about, trying to improve this aspect, instead of saying, I want A and you want B, and now we're just solely focused on that we're not going to get anything done. That's not helping anybody out. And if your goal is truly to want to improve the lives of people here in the state, then you got to be able to talk to someone and be able to compromise with them on specific issues. Even though you might not get 100% of what you want, you're still going to get something done that's going to improve the lives of people. And if that's the ultimate goal, then that's what people actually have to strive for.
So growing up and being more surrounded by folks who were more left-leaning, what brought you to the Republican Party? Was it your faith, or you just hate paying expensive taxes, or what?
Biggest issue, obviously, the taxes, trying to keep some more money in my pocket to be able to do fun things with family. And then the other, is just, some of the constitutional issues. I grew up, obviously being in the Marine Corps, we shoot guns all the time. I know if I set a gun down on this table, it's not going to do anything unless I specifically make it do something. And so just trying to get other people that don't have maybe never shot, a gun, like some people can find that as, it's almost euphoric to them. Like I'm controlling this, this weapon, shooting this target. Like it's a challenge for me to be able to hit, a specific area, a certain distance away. And, a lot of people can view it as a sport. People that have never held a weapon before, they're going to view it as, this is a weapon of war. And, I don't want anything to do with it. Well, if you've never shot it, you really don't know, how it can operate. And, the fact that it's not going to do anything that you don't tell it to do, because it's just a piece of, a piece of equipment. So it just what boiled it down to me was, I don't like taxes. I don't like big government being in my business. And, I want to be able to, live the life that I want to live. Like I said, without the government getting too involved.
Yeah, and your faith is important to you. I know you wear the cross pin. You wear it on your sleeve, and I just respect that so much and appreciate it. Is that something your mom and stepdad instilled in you, or was that more of a thing that you picked up on your own?
It was more of my wife.
Good, love her.
In me, yeah. So I didn't grow up going to church. Then even in my life in the Marine Corps, didn't really go that often. Met my wife, and when we started dating, her and her family are very religious, and so I would go to church with them, and I think just being around that environment was, just truly a blessing to me, and got baptized. So I got engaged with my wife in February 2010. Literally a couple of days after that, my best friend got killed in Afghanistan. Was going to be my wedding. So I was in a very bad place at that moment. Got married in May. My wife's going to kill me. I got married in May. We got orders to move out to Camp Pendleton, and got out there. And as soon as I got out there, I found out I was getting deployed to Afghanistan. And so I was just kind of like not, just bringing up some bad memories. And, I just kept leaning on my faith and got baptized for the first time before I actually left in the Pacific Ocean. So, my faith is very big to me. I would like to say that, I live my life, according to the way that the God would want me to, but I'm not going to know that until I actually, get up to heaven and ask him. But really, it's my wife is the one that brought me to my faith itself. And, every day I thank the Lord that she did that.
Yeah, I love it, man. I wanted to go back to the fact that you're IBEW union member.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just curious how you've seen things change in the union hall over the last decade or so. And I was thinking about this question because just yesterday I drove past a steam fitters union hall and a local operating engineers union hall, and they both had Harris signs outside the front. And I just wonder if there's just becoming such a disconnect between union leadership and union members. Because I think that for so long, unions and union leadership has been so pro-Democrat. But now, the union guys I talk to, man, they care about Second Amendment. They care about their kid being able to read by the first or second grade. They care about taxes and regulation. It's not these union issues that it once was. And are you just seeing a change in there about how people talk about politics or who they're going to support?
Yeah, so, full, I'm not. So I joined the electricians union, the IBEW, when I got the job with the city. So I haven't been a part of it for a long time. But the folks that I have talked to, a lot of them are specifically like what you said, they want to, basically live their lives without, the government being involved with it so much. But a lot of the union guys, really what they want to do is to work and be left alone. So when it comes to, the ones that the folks that I've spoken with, that I wouldn't say I haven't spoken to any of them personally that are Democratic. I'm sure there are, but I really don't get too involved in what, when I talk to them about, the politics with them. I just kind of let them know what, my views are of things. And then the ones that, feel comfortable, will open up about it. But I would say, from the way the Democratic Party used to be to what it is now, I think there is a drastic change. And if you kind of look at the way, what they used to call your moderate Democrats and your moderate Republicans, well, your moderate Democrats are probably now moderate Republicans because that line has shifted so far. But a lot of those that are in the leadership positions, lean on the Democratic side because they're the ones that they view are keeping them. That's the ones keeping them in business. When that, if you just open your horizons and you actually talk to folks on both sides of the aisle, like you're going to see that there are a lot of Republicans that are pro-union as well. Like myself, I'm a part of a union. I grew up, very, in a big union family. I did some picketing with my grandfather. Didn't really know what I was doing because I was really young.
Here, kid, hold this sign.
Yeah, it was basically, here, hold this sign, like the workers over here are scabs. Not really understanding what I was doing, but just being out there just because it was more my grandpa took me at the time. But I mean, regardless of that, it's folks want to live their lives. They don't want the government to be involved so much in their lives, and they don't want to be told specifically, what to do, when it comes to a lot of issues. And I think the way the Democratic Party is now, there are the folks that are still called moderate Democrats that are holding out because they want to see their party sway a little bit more, to what it used to be. But with the leadership that they have now, I just don't see that coming.
So you've been in the role for almost a year, 10 months. How's it been? What have you learned? What is it, what you expected?
So obviously I went into it as a naive 21-year Marine Corps vet. People were saying that, you're a Republican, you're not going to be able to get anything done. And I'm like, okay, I know how to get things done. I've spent my life in the Marine Corps knowing how to get things done. And then I went to Springfield and I was like, oh, now I see what they're talking about. Because yes, it is like banging your head against the wall a lot. But it's overall.
I think it should be, though. I mean, it should be hard to pass bills. I mean, we're talking about changing the laws for 13 million people.
Yeah.
And, so I complain, things move slow. I can't get all the things done that I want to. But I think that's the genius of our founding fathers, that you shouldn't just have an idea and all of a sudden it's a law. I mean, you got two chambers, you got an executive branch that needs to sign it, you got judges that scrutinize it, and it is hard and it is slow moving, and especially coming from, a role where something was common sense, it was the right thing to do, boom, you did it.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's a hard transition. Coming from business, it's a hard transition. But, even though it is a beast, I think it is one of the things that protects us from bad ideas. A lot of bad ideas get through in Illinois, but hopefully we stop some of them.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of the things that I have learned since I've been in is, I don't know what it used to be like, under the prior leadership. The speaker wanted to have his hands in everything, but this one giving more control to, the committees. So really you got to know, who's in the committee, who heads it, who do you need to talk to be able to get, your bill called. And then how to navigate that is what I've really picked up on. But there's just a lot of stuff that I think that we do down there in Springfield. And when we get it done, that should change because more folks should be able to see what we're doing. And yes, it is rolled live, but when you're doing things at 3:00 in the morning, at 4:00 in the morning, there's a specific reason why you're doing it at that point. Because the majority of folks that are not paying attention to it anymore. And then by the time they are paying attention, it's already said and done. And so one thing that, I loved about the military that I don't see in today's government is you come up with an idea in the military, you plan for that idea, and then you implement that idea. Here in the government, what I see is you come up with an idea, you implement the idea, and then you try to plan to catch up for what you're trying to do. Perfect example is, with us trying to go with all this, other types of energy sources, when you can plan for that. Let's say you want to have, zero emissions at certain date. Okay, whatever. Just plan for it. Don't say we're going to do this by this date. Now, all this stuff that is counter to what we're trying to do, we're going to increase the amount that it costs, gas, energy. We're going to increase all that. So you are required to push over to try to do this alternate energy sources. And now all of a sudden, the alternate energy source is very expensive. It's not, really conducive for what we're trying to do. And yet we still have stuff that is conducive for what we're trying to do that could be a lot cheaper if you would just stop regulating it. And then as we move on throughout time, if you're wanting to get away from all this other type of energy and go strictly with an alternative energy source, just plan for it and then just continually slow roll that into implementation instead of just saying, okay, this is what we're going to do. Now we're doing it without it actually being a viable source.
Yeah, I use this stat all the time. 10 years ago, Illinois had the third cheapest power in the country. Today, we have the 37th cheapest power in the country. Over a 10-year period, we've gone from a nation leader to below average. Mm-hmm. And it's really unfortunate for two main reasons. First of all, if you're a lower middle income person and your energy bill just doubled, any money that you had left over at the end of the month to take your kids out to dinner, to go on a trip, that's now your power bill. And by the way, those people are who the Democrat Party is supposed to say is that they're the ones that they care for. Oh, great, thanks, you care for me, you just doubled my energy bill. But also, it hurts those people, but it also crushes our manufacturing footprint because we've got high taxes, high property taxes especially, tough regulation. We do have a highly skilled workforce, but we used to have two strong points, the highly skilled workforce and really affordable power. And now we're just kind of hanging on to the workforce. And guess what? A lot of states have a strong workforce. Mm-hmm. So you go from 3rd to 37th. It hurts your low and middle income families, and you lose all those good paying jobs that just left because your power bills exploded. And people say, oh, if you're against that, you must be a climate denier. I'm not a climate denier, but we have to balance two different priorities. We have to balance an energy transition. We have to balance doing it in a way that we're not going to cripple families. Oh, and by the way, while we're working on this, the Chinese and the Indians are exploding their CO2 output. Meanwhile, we're going down. I think actually the United States has gone down in CO2 emissions every year since 2013. So we're making progress, but we're just going to say, oh, Illinois, carry the torch, double your energy bills. By the way, Illinois is 14 million people. China and India are 2 billion plus people. And so this is all a drop in the bucket, probably not even a drop in the bucket. And the result is families are hurting. So you got two priorities to balance. And when you do it without planning, you do it in a way that hurts people.
Yeah. When you don't have a plan to implement what you want, then chaos can ensue. And that's, I think right now what we have in this economic environment here in Illinois is, pretty chaotic with the amount that it costs to, go to the grocery store, to go out to eat, to, fill your car up with gas. Like anything has gone, significantly up in price. And what, I took my family of 5, myself, my wife, and my 3 boys went to see the new movie, what was it, Inside Out 2. And we went down to Champaign, the movie theaters down there, $150.
Oh my.
To go down there. It like, that is unaffordable for, unless you're planning for it. Like, we're having to plan to be able to do you want to go out to eat, you got to plan for it and save the money. You want to go to the movies, you got to plan for it and save the money. There's no more spontaneous activities for families anymore because everything has ballooned in price to what is almost unattainable for, the average family. And it's just sad to see. We just lost, 510 jobs here in Danville. And I was talking with a lady yesterday that worked for her mom and dad, both worked there, retired out of there. She worked there for 5 years before they decided to close down. She had planned to get married in October, had to cancel her wedding plans because they just didn't know, where her and her husband both were working there, or her fiance were both working there, and they didn't know what they were going to do to be able to afford a wedding, so they canceled the wedding. And now she had mentioned that she's just going to elope with him just because, they can't afford to have the wedding that they wanted to. So they're going to, like it should be, they're going to plan and save up their money and then have a big venue at one point. But I mean, that it's just, you got to get it back to reality and plan for what you want to do. Like I just keep saying that word because that's how it should be. If you have an idea and you want to implement that idea, you have to have a plan for it before you implement it. And that is not what we're doing here in the state.
Yeah. So kind of on that point, you got a race coming up this fall. You're on the ballot in November. You got a tough election. How's it going for you?
I mean, I think it's going really good. I've been out there, knocking on.
I bet you don't get outworked.
No, I've been knocking on thousands of doors. I have a great team that's knocking on, significantly more than I'm doing. And, we're just getting out there, just, spreading the name of who I am, what I stand for. And, really just the biggest thing that we need to do is just ensure that we get out and we vote. Yes, I want you to get out there and vote for me, but just get out there and vote. That is, what this country is known for. We are, a free country. You have that right to be able to get out there and vote and voice your opinion. You need to get out there and do so.
Mm-hmm. So, Brandon, I always try to kind of end on a happier note. And so my special question for you, I just got engaged a week ago today. And so I would love to hear the story about how you asked your wife to marry you. Maybe you can tell the folks a little bit about Brandun Schweizer, the romantic.
Yeah, of course. So I was actually, I was a recruiter at the time, got selected to go out to California to be part of the MCRD, the Marine Corps Recruit Depot shooting team. And
this is just oozing with romanticism as it goes.
Yes. And so I was walking around the mall out there when I had some downtime, walked into a jewelry store and really just walked in there to look for a watch. And, my now wife had been giving me hints on the ring that she wanted. It had to be X, Y, and Z. And, as I was walking to look at the watches, I just happened to, out of the corner of my eye, see a ring that just screamed at me. And I looked at it and I was like, can I see that right there? And I looked at it and I was like, I pulled up my list of requirements. I'm like, yep, it meets it. Yep, it meets it. Yep, it meets it. I'm like, this has got to be a sign. So I bought it. It was Valentine's Day in 2010. Wow. And we were at her parents' house. I think we were either playing Super Nintendo.
Nice.
And her and her brother were playing, and I grabbed her parents and snuck them into the kitchen and was like, hey, pull the ring out. I was like, I'm going to ask, if your daughter will marry me. I'd love to get your blessing. They both looked at me and said that they would be honored to do so. So I went out there and I don't know who won, what they were doing. But after it was over, I just looked at it and I was like, hey, I just want you to know, and said, I've loved you since the day I've met you. I want you in my life for the rest of my life, and got down on my knee and said, would you marry me?
Wow.
And she said yes.
I love it, man. So, good for you. And here we are 14 years later, a couple kids running around. Made a good choice.
Oh, yes. It was been a blessing ever since.
So before we sign off, I mentioned you got a campaign this fall. How can people follow you, learn more, donate to you? You got any events coming up you want to share with the listeners? Yeah,
so I have a event coming up this Sunday, actually, at Exit 210. If you want to learn some more information, Schweizer for State Representative on Facebook. You can go in there. You can find all the events that I have. If you want to donate, Citizens for Schweizer, please do so. Brandun the number 4il.com is my website.
Brandun with a U.
Brandun with a U. U as in unique.
Nice.
So go on to the website. You can donate on there. You can find out some more information about me. And then, if you ever need to get in touch with me, please reach out. You can hit me up on Messenger from the website, or if you just look up Brandun Schweizer on Facebook, you can find me there as well.
Awesome. Great. Well, thanks for taking the time, man. Always a pleasure chatting with you. I appreciate you coming on.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Brandun.
I'm Travis Weaver, and you are listening to the Good People Project.